Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. Jeff Lepera, a registered nurse originally from the Philippines and now based in Sydney's North Shore, shares his transformative journey into landscape photography. What began as a spontaneous decision to capture his daughter's birthday with a borrowed DSLR evolved into a passion for seascapes and nature. Along the way, Jeff taught himself the foundational skills of photography, embracing its challenges such as camera-destroying mishaps, with resilience and determination. For Jeff, photography is more than a hobby. It's a tool for mental well-being and a way to connect with like-minded communities. He emphasises the critical elements of composition, light and preparation, particularly in capturing the beauty of coastal and natural landscapes. Driven by a deep love for the environment, Jeff shares aspirations of furthering his craft by expanding his portfolio and potentially transitioning his passion into a career. He also highlights the potential of photography as a medium to raise awareness about environmental conservation and foster a deeper appreciation for the natural world. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Jeff. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
Good, Grant. How you going? Glad for being on your podcast. Thank you for asking me. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you for being here. It's wonderful to talk to you. I love your work, and as we were saying just before we started recording, you know, we've sort of been to a lot of places and probably seen each other in the distance, but never really actually sat and
knows person.
So it's great to meet you and great to actually spend some time with you. So why don't we get into why is Jeff a landscape photographer?
Well, a little bit about me then. I'm Jeff. I live in the upper North Shore, which is not a very photogenic area. I'm a registered nurse and I'm married with 2 kids. And on my spare time, I go and do landscape photography. I've been doing landscape photography, I'd say, for about 6 years, a bit over 6 years. I didn't initially start off doing landscape photography. How I got into photography was a bit of a story. My daughter was turning 6 and she had a big party planned, and, you know, we got all her friends invited. We hired a hall and I thought, I want to take some good photos. So I might grab a professional camera. So my brother-in-law at the time, he was already a seasoned photographer. He had all this gear. So I asked him, can I borrow your camera? He gave me his D750, Nikon D750, which is a DSLR. It's a while back. So back then it was quite a good camera.
It still is a good camera.
It still is a good camera. So he lent me that and he gave me the camera and I looked at it and I go, what the hell? Like all these buttons, all these numbers around the lenses. I had no clue whatsoever. I had no photography experience. I've never really held a professional camera before then. And I thought, how the hell am I going to take my daughter's, birthday with not knowing anything about photography? So what I did was I went on this website. Have you heard of Creative Live?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so I found Creative Live and there was this thing where you have to pay $100 and you can watch photography like tutorials.
Yep.
So I saw this guy, his name's John Gringo, and he had a foundations of photography. And I watched that. It discussed everything from aperture, to shutter speed, to ISO, the triangle, tripods, everything, all the basics of photography. And I'm a registered nurse, so during the night shift, I just spent most of my night shifts just watching that before my daughter's birthday. And I learned a lot. It helped a big load, to just learn the foundations and how everything works, what the buttons mean and what ISO even means. And it's just amazing how much I learned through that. And when the day came and, I managed to get some good shots of my daughter's birthday. Yeah, and it wasn't the best shots. I still needed a lot of learning to do, but that was the start of my photographic journey. After getting a few shots, I thought, wow, I love photography. I'm going to continue doing it. Yeah, that was the start of it. And eventually I venture off into landscape photography as well, which is another story how I got into that. So landscape photography, basically, I started off with just taking portraits of people. And with landscape photography, I had decided to join Instagram. I was really against Instagram to begin with. And I thought, oh, I'm taking all these photos. Yeah, I had to put it somewhere. So I started Instagram, and you start to get the feeds and stuff. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, there was this one guy who really stuck out at me. I don't know if you know Brendan Tellis.
I've seen his work. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was the first landscape photographer I saw. He shot lots of seascapes
Mm.
and like long exposure seascapes, and you know how you get the lines of the ocean and all those textures of the water, and that really fascinated me. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna try and do some landscape photography. So I remember my very first time, I thought, oh, I'm gonna do a sunrise. So I went to, where did I go? Monteval Beach for
Oh,
my
yeah.
very
Good spot. Yep.
yeah. So I thought, oh, it's nice and close. I'll go there, and I went there before sunrise. And I remember I did get the sunrise was one of those bangers, with beautiful colors.
Nice.
I remember setting up and just taking those photos. It was just a very simple photo of like just the ocean and the sunrise coming up. Not much composition or thought put into the composition, just directly facing the sunrise and the colors. And after that, I was hooked. After getting those photos and getting those colors as amazing, images,
Yeah.
I was hooked into seascapes. That was it.
Nice.
I just kept
So
coming back.
that was the first shot where you said, "Yep, oh, this is it. That's what I want to
Yeah,
do."
yeah. After that, it was just like, bugs bit you, and just
Yeah.
like addicted to. I didn't even think of like portraits or other stuff now. I just thought landscape photography. That's it.
No, I know the bug bite. So
Yeah, yeah.
I guess those early influences, like Brad and whatever, how do you think they've sort of shaped what it is that you're doing?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, seeing his photos, I've always wanted to emulate those kind of images, getting the
Hmm.
nice flow and ocean movement. Any kind of water flow was generally my main interest with photography. So anytime I can get like a good composition with rocks and flowing water going through those rocks, and obviously with a nice sunrise or sunset behind it. So my main kind of passion to kind of capture. Also, like photographers, like some of the greats, like Michael Shane Bloom.
Yeah.
I also love what's his name, Kevin Hardcastle.
Gavin
Kevin
Hardcastle.
Hardcastle. Yeah, he was. I really was into him at the beginning, and he kind of shaped like
Yeah.
my landscape photography journey. And watching
No.
those guys, yeah, it's I really enjoyed. Yeah.
And do you set yourself goals in your photography? Do you have anything that you're trying to achieve? Is there a plan for it to become a career, or is it always just a hobby?
Um,
Where is it in your life, and how do you see it going?
yeah, for me, for me, it's a hobby at the moment. I do enjoy getting out there. It's mainly for mental health as well. It's good to get out there,
Sure.
especially for a sunrise. When you get there to the location, usually you're the only one there, and it's no one else but you and the beautiful scenery, and it's just kind of forget about everything, and it's just you and the camera in front of that, sunrise or whatever you're trying to capture, and you tend to forget about your problems, and it's just yeah, it's just a lot of fun for me as well. It's just yeah, it feels great after you finish a photography session, you just feel energized, and
Yeah.
yeah, I guess for the future for me, at the moment, I'm quite busy with work and kids. Like when everything starts to wind down, I'll probably maybe start to get more serious in it. Maybe do some workshops, or start to make it into a career. But right now, it's just a hobby for me.
Sure, sure. And what, I guess, keeps you inspired? What is it that you're doing to stay motivated? Because, just going out and just doing a sunrise, it's all very nice. And as you say,
Yeah.
it's relaxing, etc. But for me, anyway, there's kind of got to be a little bit more to it. What is it that you use to sort of get yourself up? Because, who wants to get up at 3 in the morning to go shoot
Oh yeah.
sunrise
Yeah,
other than
of
us
course.
idiots?
Yeah, I guess at the end, coming home with these amazing images, that's what motivates me. Like coming back and you've captured these amazing images that people don't see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
It's something that only landscape photographers see, and it's good to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the average person doesn't really see that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
it's kind of good to share that. with like friends and family who don't do landscape photography, they're usually always really in awe. When they see these kind of pictures, they go, "Oh, that looks amazing," and I've never seen anything like that before. Also, well, the main motivation for me is also making connections. I have a lot of friends doing landscape photography,
Yeah.
and I have a small group of friends that I usually go out with,
Right.
and
Okay.
I made like quite strong connections with them, and we've been through many like travels. Like we
Hmm.
visited quite a number of places. We've been to Warrumbungle National Park.
Nice. Yeah.
What we did, we got a group of photographers together, probably about four of us, and we camped at the base. And we decided to hike up there at Warrumbungle just before sunset. And
Lovely.
yeah, it's a killer hike. If you haven't done Warrumbungle before, it's a lot of steps going up there, and
There's a hell of a lot of steps. It's
yeah,
it's pretty
especially
steep in parts, but
yeah,
I mean, as trails go, aside from the vertical climb, it's actually not too bad.
yeah,
The vertical climb there's a few areas which are you gets the calves and the thighs going, but
yeah, definitely. Especially when you're carrying a bag
yeah,
full of camera gear, a tripod, it just really takes it out of you. I've
absolutely.
told most of my friends with me, like, oh, make sure you pack light and like just carry one camera, yeah, one lens and a tripod. If you do any more than that, it's gonna kill you. They
Yeah.
decide to carry their whole gear with them, and one of them just made it up, like just barely. Yeah, so that's the main motivating factor for me. Is just connections, friendships, obviously amazing photos, just the experience, and yeah, it's just the all the beautiful images ingrained into your mind.
Mm, mm.
That's the main motivating factor for me. Yeah.
And in terms of how you're using composition lighting, post-processing to, work your images, what are the things that you've got top of mind when you're out in the field?
Obviously, I usually chase the light. If I find a good spot, usually the day before, I usually scout, for a composition. I usually go there during the day if I got some time and have a look for some decent, like, rock formations and watch where the tide hits and all that kind of stuff. And usually, yeah, if you get some good light hitting it, the rocks and the 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 flow of the ocean, that's usually what I try to get. And if you don't get the lighting very well, you don't get as beautiful as images as you would like.
Yeah.
Yeah, just mainly making sure the light's hitting where it should be and scouting. That's the main things I do before doing some landscape photography.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned, going to the Warrumbungles, which is a fair hike here from Sydney.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the furthest you've gone on a purely a photography trip?
Oh, we went just recently. We went to Tasmania. That's
Okay.
probably the furthest I went. That was purely a photography trip. So I flew with two other friends, and yeah, we flew to certain parts of Tassie, and we hired a car. And we drove around just purely and for photography. We drove to certain locations and we did some astro, and we went to the Bay of Fires,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
we camped out. There was a campsite right next to it, and we camped
yeah,
there for a couple of nights, and we did some photography sessions along with some sunrise and sunsets, and yeah, it was a beautiful experience. We also went to Cradle Mountain as well. If you've ever been to there.
yeah. I've done the hike around Dove Lake. I haven't gone up Cradle Mountain
Yeah.
personally.
Oh, we didn't go up. We went up to Dove Lake, and unfortunately, when we went, it was heavily overcast, and you couldn't even see Cradle Mountain. It was just the
Yeah,
lake,
well,
and yeah,
my trip, you got to Dove Lake and you could see Cradle Mountain really clear, and there was barely a cloud in the sky when we first set off.
yeah,
And by the time we got back, it was lightly snowing,
yeah,
and you couldn't see, well, about halfway around, you couldn't see the top of Cradle Mountain. By the time we got back, all it was, you could see the lake and the base,
yeah, yeah.
the trees around the base.
Oh, you're lucky. Yeah, I wasn't so lucky. I just get like you know white skies, just like
Yeah.
the lake and the little base of the mountain, but not. I didn't see the peaks, unfortunately.
We were lucky to see them early on, but it was actually quite funny as we were walking back past the boathouse there on the western side of the lake,
Yeah,
and as we're walking past, we saw all these people done up to the nines, full dress and whatever, and then along comes a bride in
Oh,
her
wow.
bridal gown and a guy carrying a double bass and people with violins and all the rest of it. They were going to the boathouse to actually do their wedding photos, but as I said, by the time we'd sort of come past there, it was just clouded out and lightly
Yeah,
snowing, so it was a bit. It would have been a disappointing shoot for them, I guess,
yeah,
but
that's right. It's luck of the draw with landscape photography, really.
absolutely, absolutely. You talked about living up on the northern beaches. Do you think that's influenced how you shoot? It obviously influences.
Yeah, I guess it's so close. I guess it's probably the closest, place I can go for photography.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I usually go to the Blue Mountains.
yep,
That's one of my favorite spots as well. I usually wait until we get some decent rain or heavy rain. I usually go when it's just heavily raining. I like to go when the waterfall's actually gushing and
yeah, yeah,
full force and power. I don't mind being wet. I just walk around in the Blue Mountains when it's pissing down, and I
yeah.
just have a raincoat and lots of wipes to
The
keep
next
up.
next week or so, you should be in for a treat then.
Yeah, I'm still on holiday, so I might actually head down there and try to
Nice.
get some shots.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the forecast, and I mean, my backyard's completely not flooded, but sodden. You walk in there, and it's just squelchy mud.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
I'm thinking, yeah, I probably should. I haven't been up the mountains for a little while, actually. I was actually going through some of my waterfall shots the other night,
Yeah.
and I realised the last time I'd actually shot in the Blue Mountains, I did a shoot out near Lithgow recently, but the last time I actually shot in the Blue Mountains was about 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. It's been a while for me as well. Yeah, I've had a bit of a hiatus with my photography, but I'm looking to get back into it again soon.
What's your favourite spot up there?
My favorite spot is usually the Valley of Waters. That's quite
Yeah,
good. You get some good shots there. You know that
there,
spot.
there's lots of waterfalls to choose from there down
Yeah,
there.
plenty to choose from, and you got where Witch's Leap is.
Yeah,
Along there, you can walk down, and there's heaps of different waterfalls you can choose. I think Mini Ha Ha Falls. That's quite good. It's a
yeah,
bit of a
that's a good one. Yeah.
and it slots in. Oh, I forgot the name now. Yeah, there's lots to choose from. The grotto is quite good.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, okay. I
there's a
don't
bit
think
of a
I've
hike
been
to
there
get there.
recently. Probably, I don't know. It'd be years since I've been there.
Yeah, it's the first time I went there was when I went to a waterfall workshop.
Okay.
You remember the Oscapers?
Yeah,
Was
yeah. Yeah.
when the Oscapers were around, they used to like do workshops, and they did a waterfall workshop once. This would have been like I'd say about 5 years ago,
Yeah, yeah.
and I joined that, and we stayed in the Blue Mountains for 2 nights, and
Nice.
we scattered around for all the good locations, and I made some few friends, which I'm still friends with now in that workshop,
Yeah,
and we go out and do photography quite regularly. Yeah.
yeah. It sounds like community is really important to you. I guess how do you stay in touch with people and you know organize your trips and everything?
We usually just chat through Instagram or WhatsApp. We got
Yeah.
like a group chat where we just chat in the group and do suggestions. Oh, you guys want to shoot today? And like next week we're doing a sunrise photography session. You want to join? And kind
Nice.
of goes like that. And if you're free, you join. If you're not, then next time. But it's usually we usually have got a group chat discussing photography sessions and in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. Can you share a story of a shoot where the journey or the experience was a little bit more meaningful than the actual final photo?
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me. There's so many to think of. Let me think. Most meaningful photo would have to be. Yeah, I'll have to say Warren Bungle. That was quite recent actually, because
Yeah.
it was such a it was such an effort to get up there.
Mm.
It almost killed me actually, like getting up there. And I remember we were going up there, and it was just sunset has just started, like the good light has just
Yeah.
started. And I remember scrambling to get my camera out, my tripod, because that light was just probably 5 to 10 minutes until it was gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to scramble to get a good shot of that. that big rock feature, the main rock feature you see in Warrumbungle, and I had to quickly find a foreground. And I think I found a foreground and set up my shot, and
I think
I
it's
just
called
managed.
Maori Spire or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I just managed to get the good light and a few good shots of the foreground, and yeah, and by the time I got 10 shots in, the lighting was gone,
Do you
and
hang around for any astro?
yeah, so there was about I think five of us up there, and it was freezing. It was like I think we went just towards the end of winter,
Okay.
and it was windy and it was freezing, and like the wind was like you could feel the wind through all the like my jacket and everything,
Yeah.
and I don't think I could have stayed up there any longer for Astro. Unfortunately, it was just too windy. Everyone was too cold, and
No, fair
I
enough.
just had to go down.
No,
Well,
on a good night, it's really good. I mean,
yeah,
it's there's an observatory up there for a reason because
yeah,
they get really dark skies, and you can get a pretty good view of the stars up there. But as you say, it can get cold and it
yeah,
can get pretty windy up there too. So
yeah,
what was the hike back down like?
yeah. Well, one of my friends, he was a bit, he didn't care about the conditions. He kind of disappeared, and we were like calling out to him, and we couldn't find him. And he actually he got a spot at the base, like a different location. He was already set up for Astro. Thought
Okay.
we were going to stay there. He was the only one who wanted to stay, and he was a little bit upset that everyone else wanted to go down. Which
Yeah. I
I
wouldn't have
don't.
wanted to stay up there on my own either.
Yeah, he goes, "Oh, I just go and I just leave me here." And I'm like, "No, no, we got to go because it's the hike. The hike down took about
Yeah.
an hour and a half probably, and it was pitch black. And luckily, we all had our torches and we knew what the hike was like on the way up, so we kind of memorized what it was looked like on the way down.
Yeah.
And it took us an hour and a half to get down, and yeah, eventually we reached the campsite and we had a barbecue. It was like close to midnight, and we set up a barbecue at the campsite, and yeah, it was quite enjoyable afterwards. Yeah, and
Cool.
sat by the fire while we had a few beers and had a barbecue, and yeah, all those experiences, add up to your photography journey, and which
Yeah.
makes it more enjoyable. Yeah,
Sounds amazing.
yeah.
What about horror stories? Have you had any
Oh
situations
yes,
where you've been a bit that have been a bit sketchy?
not sketchy, but there was one horror story that I'll never forget. This is after my fresh sunrise shot, and I got into landscape photography.
Hmm.
I enjoyed my brother-in-law's D750 so much, so I went ahead and bought my own D750, and I only had it for a few months, and I got for a few photos through it. And it was one morning I headed for sunrise down to Turrametta Beach,
Yep, yep.
and I did get some amazing sunrises, and the good light was over, and I thought I'll practice some long exposure. So the sun was already up, and I went towards this rock I saw, and I was kind of close to where the waves were lapping.
Yeah.
So I got my tripod, I put it in, quite solid, right, with a camera, and I just left it there. And I went to my bag to grab some ND filters for some long exposures.
Uh-huh.
I was going through my bag. I had my back turned, and the waves were lapping and kind of pulling at the tripod, which I didn't realize, and it actually pulled my tripod over, and
No.
the wave took it in, and it rolled the tripod, camera, lens, D750, rolled
Ouch.
into the ocean, along in the sand, and completely destroyed my camera after a few months of having it. And
Uh,
I remember screaming like just profanity. Just luckily no one else was there.
did you have it insured?
No, that's it. I didn't have any short. That was very silly of me. So there was a big lesson learned there. It destroyed my camera, my lens. Yeah, I didn't tell my wife. She would have killed me. I still got the camera with me now. It's just
No, now?
yeah, she knows now. Yeah, it's just a brick. It's just like a book stop. Usually, I just use it as a book
Yeah.
stop now. And now, yeah, I learned to insure your camera. Never turn your back on your camera when you're doing seascapes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've done many sketchy seascapes now. That's never happened to me again. Yeah, I've been, knee deep in like flowy water and with waves crashing, like a bit risky, but I've never had any issues with my camera getting hit like
Yeah.
that again. And now I've got my camera insured.
Yeah. I never leave my tripod.
No,
It's
no,
if I've got to go somewhere to do something, then it comes with me. I never
yeah,
leave it sort of standing there.
That was
And
a big horror story. Yeah, I'll never forget that incident. It's still ingrained in my memory with the tripod slowly falling into the water. I could still see it now.
I still killed it twice, but
Yeah,
I just got the innards replaced and got
yeah.
insurance to pay for it. So
So yeah, I know seascape photography is quite risky, especially with an
yeah,
expensive camera.
yeah.
So,
The salt will kill your camera eventually if you
yeah.
wet it up long enough. Yeah.
So what I do now is every time I'm doing a seascape photography shoot, and I'm quite close to the water where the waves are like actually lapping over the tripod, I usually put a rain jacket on it now, just for an
Yeah.
extra bit of security, and that prevents any splashes and stuff that go onto the camera. And it's just a bit of extra security. It's easier to clean afterwards, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I usually always clean my camera, wipe it down
I sometimes remember to take that with me, but
after my first citizen. I don't want to lose a camera again, so
yeah, fair
I'm
enough.
super cautious now, like overly cautious, which is
Yeah.
a good thing, I guess. Now,
How's landscape photography shaped your relationship with the natural world?
yeah, that's landscape photography. Before, like, I never seen any of these amazing landscapes before I did landscape photography. Like, I've never appreciated how beautiful the Australian landscape is. Now that I've been doing landscape photography for 6 years. I've seen many beautiful sceneries. I've visited many beautiful locations, and it's given me appreciation for nature, and obviously keeping our environment clean, and showing that to through my photograph, showing other people how beautiful I just a backyard is. Trying to motivate people to actually go out and explore Australia, which is we got so much beautiful areas we can explore here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think about the world differently than before you started landscape photography at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely, I'd say like you're a bit more cautious with like what do you call it? Like global warming and all that kind of stuff. I look at the weather more often than I should. Like yeah, you got more of a affinity to nature now. I'd say
Yeah,
like when certain areas are damaged by like major floods, and for example like how we had those major floods a few years ago and
yeah.
damaged some of the tracks on the Blue Mountains, and
Yeah,
you
well,
know
there was heaps of tracks there that were just closed for about a year, 18 months, some of them.
yeah, and there was some of the locations I used to visit on a regular basis, and
Mm.
having that wiped out, and also like one place I always wanted to visit was the sugar pine forest.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
those with the tall like straight logs. Now that's wiped out from the
yeah.
bushfires we had. It was on my bucket list to visit. Now that location's totally.
Yeah, I miss getting there as well. Like the fires killed that opportunity.
Yeah, so you kind of have a bit more like relationship with nature, I guess, and be
Mm.
more sensitive to what happens to what's going on around you in regards to weather-wise, and yeah,
Yeah, I think it makes you more aware of what's actually going on around you atmospherically, but also,
yeah.
as you said, with climate change, are you trying to do anything with your photography in regard to that, in terms of trying to communicate anything in terms of conservation in that regard?
Yeah, obviously, just be more respectful when you're out and about. Not leaving rubbish behind. I'd say like and when you taking photos, not stepping on any like ferns or like trying to be respectful. Just trying to do as little damage as possible when you're out there, and not like disturbing the landscape too much. That's my main message. I think. Yeah.
And what about when you're getting home after a shoot? Are you straight in? Are you the sort of photographer that's, can't wait to get into
Oh,
the
yeah.
thing, or are you more
I used to be like in the beginning, like yeah, when I first started landscape photography, as soon as I get back, I'd be taking photographs, and I mean, after taking photographs, I'd be going into Lightroom and Photoshop and like cleaning up the image and start editing straight away. But now, I just you got that. I used to think you have to get your image out as quick as possible with Instagram to
yeah,
get followers and all that stuff. But being into photography for a lot longer, I don't care about that anymore. It's just like I tend to take my time with the image and enjoy the editing process, and I really slowed down quite a lot. And I try not to rush things,
yeah,
and after editing, I usually go back to it and see, oh, I've done too much of this, I've over processed this, and
Yep.
I try to dial down a bit on the processing. And after you sleep on it and you come back the next day, you kind of look at the image differently.
Yeah.
So I try not to get it out as soon as possible, because some of the early images, I look back and I go, oh, if I've done too much here, I've done too much there, and yeah, it's less of that happens now because I do take my time.
Yeah. Do you print
Photography.
any of your work at all?
Yeah, I got some printed at home. I hang up on the wall. Yeah, and a few my family members have asked for some prints to hang up on their wall too. So
That's
obviously I just give it for free, but it's family. Yeah, and I got people messaging me, like friends usually saying, "Oh, can I have that photo?" Or can you print some of these your photos for me? I think, but yeah.
yeah, nice. What about when things aren't working quite as well? How do you deal with disappointment, or how do you deal with when you hit a creative wall, for example, and you just don't, you're not feeling it? Has that ever
Yeah,
happened?
yeah, it has actually. Quite recently, yeah, I think the last 2 years, it's happened to me because I ended up getting a bit of a health issue, which affected my photography quite a lot.
Sure.
And I recently got that issue sorted. It's mainly the health issue. Like I couldn't get up as early as I could in the mornings for sunrise, and
Mm.
getting out there was really difficult because of this health issue. But recently, it's sorted now, so I'm slowly getting back into it. I got friends of mine as well who, constantly motivating. I think your photography friends are the main people that motivate you. It's like, oh, let's go for a shoot.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you want to get out, enjoying your friends to go for a shoot. Also, watching, my favorite photographers on YouTube, like Nick Page, Michael Shane Bloom, watching their videos and seeing the images they come out with is one of the main motivating factors that keeps me going, and
Mm.
trying to remember like the feeling you get when you go out to do the sunrise, and you know that feeling of ecstatic, when you do capture a good image,
Yeah.
always wanting to get that feeling again. I guess that's the main motivating factors for me.
Yeah, that's nice. I think what you were saying there about having sort of people that'll drag you out, you know,
Yes.
come on, we got to go. That helps a lot.
Yeah, it does. It's why I've been in landscape photography for so long. I guess you got friends messaging you, oh, when are we going to plan our next photography trip? And oh,
Yeah.
let's plan something in winter. I think we're at the moment we're planning to do Mount Kosciuszko. A couple of my
Okay.
friends have messaged me saying let's do the Ram's Head track, and yeah, they want to take some photos up there and maybe camp up there as well.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I know the conditions can be a bit crazy, so it's
Yeah. Well, depends a lot on time of year, but even in summer, it can snow up the top there,
yeah,
and can get quite cold at night and really windy too. And I know I've not spent the night up the top, but I've camped in the snowies a few times, and yeah, can get pretty wild.
yeah. So I just have to really research that spot and make sure it's all clear when we go up there and nothing too crazy. But yeah, that's the next thing we're planning. But yeah, so at the moment, that's the next shoot in the horizon.
Nice.
I've recently come back from Melbourne as well for a family trip.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how hard it is to take landscape photography when you're with your family. I know. There was
I
a speech.
do.
Yeah, there was a spot. Phillip Island.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a spot there which I really wanted to shoot. You got those boulder rocks, which is red. And you got
Yeah.
these mountain spires, which is like kind of a reddish hue.
I think I know where you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot the name. Something Pinnacle.
Yeah.
And we drove up there just with the kids, just to explore anyway. And I realized that you had to hike there for about an hour to get to that spot.
Yep.
And I had the kids with me and the wife. And yeah, I knew if I disappeared for an hour, they said, "Oh, we'll wait in the car." I go, I can't just leave them there for an hour. So
It's an hour's hike, but then you've got at least an hour, so
then an hour
and
back.
then an hour back. So it's actually 3 hours. So
Yeah, so yeah, it just wasn't
yeah, they're not
appropriate at the
feasible.
time.
I get it.
It was just there, but it was just within out of reach. I thought you could actually drive right to the spot and just walk down, but no,
Yeah.
you actually have to hike there. And yeah, I guess I'll have to go there next time and without the family for a photography trip. Some friends actually hike there to the location and spend your time and
Yeah,
explore and find your composition. Yeah, you need lots of time, I guess, for landscape photography.
absolutely.
You really need time
I,
for composition and all that.
I quite often ask how people balance, when they're working full time and, wanting to do photography as much as they can, and they've got families and everything. How do you actually balance all of those three aspects of your life?
Yeah, it's quite difficult because I got two girls. They're 12 and 17, so they're quite old now. So it's a bit easier.
Fairly self-sufficient now. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's easier to get out there. Usually, my wife is quite accommodating with my photography. Sometimes I'll tell her the night before,
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a sunrise shoot, and yeah, I'm going to be gone for a couple of hours. Usually, sometimes I'm back before they wake up anyway.
I was
So
going to say, yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'm back by 7 a.m.
yeah, so it kind of works out. And I work as a registered nurse, so my hours are quite all over the place, and
Yeah,
I get time off during the midweek. So it's a lot better for if you're going on your own for landscape photography because during the midweek everyone's working and there's usually
mm,
no one there, and you just got the whole place to yourself most of the time, and there's no one there but you and the scenery. You can take your
yeah,
time and look for shots, and that's the beauty of it. I think of being a shift worker. You can plan your trips like midweek where there's no, especially the Blue Mountains. You can go midweek and it's
yeah,
empty, and I do enjoy going there midweek and walking through the tracks, and there's absolutely no one there but you and nature and sounds of the birds and the sound of the waterfalls, and it's just like, yeah, what I crave, I guess. Again, being out there in nature, just in the elements, it's just such a good feeling.
fantastic. Where do you see photography's place in society?
Photography society. I guess photography is so broad. I mean, photography is quite, you know, it's not as big these days, I think, because of, with the technology like the iPhones, with the technology of the cameras coming out in the iPhones, people can just take a good photo using their phone.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not sure how popular photography is now, but I don't think it's as big as it was before iPhones. I mean, it's not as big now as now that iPhones have come out. But I think photography will always be there. There's some shots you can't do without a professional camera, like wedding photography. You need a professional camera for that, definitely,
yeah. Mm.
and also some landscape photography as well. You need like a professional camera to pull out as much detail as you can from your images. And
Depends a little bit on what you're doing, but yeah, I'm with you. You've got to spend a bit of money on your gear to get to a point where it it's a tool that really enhances both the experience, but also the result that you end up with.
yeah, also on the side, I do like just for experimental stuff. I do like film photography as well.
Okay.
I, I got other groups of friends who do street photography,
Yeah, yeah.
and they just they don't do landscapes. They just do streets. So sometimes they call me up and go, "Oh, come along, and we'll do some street photography." And I got like a film camera, an old film camera I use, and just use
Cool.
that for street photography. So there's
Nice.
other avenues of photography I dabble into, but obviously my passion's always with landscape photography. But
Mm.
yeah,
What do you see as the biggest challenge facing photographers right now?
I'd say AI. Sometimes you don't know if an image is actually real or it's not.
Yeah.
AI is so good now that you can manipulate so much of the scene of your photos. You could totally change your photo and make it look real. And sometimes you just don't know
Mm.
if it's those photos are legit. Like some photos we take, we take the effort getting up early, getting the location. Sometimes you have to visit that location 7 times before you get a good shot, and
Mm.
it's a lot of effort to get a shot that you're happy with. And sometimes with AI, you can just like take a mediocre shot and just change it, and it's so easy to do. And it's not much effort really into it, but I think that's the main thing now.
Do you
Which
see it as cheating in some way?
I guess it's not if you say it's if this image is like all AI, it's if the
Yeah, if
sky
it's digital art and you're open about it, but
yeah, if you're open about it,
I
it's
think
not
it's where
cheating.
people are
Yeah,
dishonest or at the very least,
it does some of the digital images they come out with is quite stunning. You think to yourself, it's too perfect to be a real photograph. Like everything about the photograph is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're open and they tell you it's like it's AI, it's digitally enhanced, and I guess that's fine. But yeah,
I think the fact that it's so difficult to tell the difference with some images, there's some where you look at them and it's clearly not, there's something that's not quite right about it in terms
yeah,
of presenting it as a photo. But I think there's things where you look at them and you go, yeah, well, it could be a photo. I'm just not sure. Yeah.
yeah. I guess sometimes with like if you get featured by like Nikon or something, they ask for the actual image, and they say you can't cheat on that when
Yeah.
they feature a photo. But early on, I got a feature from Nikon China, I think,
Okay. Yeah.
and it was an image of like I didn't think it was that great to be featured in Nikon, but it was in Turumeta Beach. We got those rock shelves. There was a fisherman right in
Yep.
the middle of the rock shelf. In between the rock shelf, there were some waves, and you get the texture of the ocean with the fisherman,
Yeah.
sunrise behind him. And yeah, they got that featured in Nikon China quite a while back, and I didn't think that was such a great image, but they tend to like it, so they asked for the actual image and yeah, and sent it to them. So I guess you can't really cheat with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you see as the future of photography?
Future photography, it's constantly changing. I guess it's really hard to pinpoint the future. I mean, the cameras are getting better and better each time. Like
Yeah.
the cameras out now are just amazingly high tech. Like especially for landscape photography, you don't really need all that tech. With the auto focusing and like the auto focusing is so good now, and you can get 100 images in a few seconds. Like and especially with the new Nikon cameras that's out, and all the Sony and Canon cameras are just really amazing tech. I guess it's going to constantly advance, and people are always going to need those kind of gear. Especially when you're doing sports photography or something with high action, you're always going to need like those kind of stuff. But with us, like landscape photographers, we're kind of humble. We don't need like the best cameras out there. We just need a
Yeah.
decent camera. We don't need really
It just
all the
needs
great.
to do what you need it to do.
Yeah, as long as it can take a high definition, like the sensor can handle all sorts of lighting. That's all that matters to us, really.
Absolutely. What's your favorite thing about being a photographer?
Everything for me, mainly, it's getting out there, meeting new people. Obviously, I'm a bit of a tech head. I do like getting new gear and tinkering with all the new lenses that come out, all the advancements of each lens that come out, and I do get interested in that. And going out, trying out the new lens that you purchase, how sharp the image is, and how much more detail you can get from a lens.
Yeah.
Uh, I enjoyed that stuff, and along with all the other stuff I spoke about, all those combined, the techie stuff and community and the feeling of just taking landscape photography and all the experiences that I've accumulated through the years with just and friends I've made just with starting landscape photography.
Yeah.
Like,
Nice.
I think landscape photography it's really great with making new friends. I think no other photography genre you can get is where you can travel, to different locations with other friends as you can do with landscape photography, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. What's your least favorite thing about being a photographer?
Probably the cost of the gear. Obviously, camera gear is just so
Yeah.
expensive. If you want to get a good lens, it's just like an arm and a leg. It's just like you got to save up for it basically to get a decent lens. Obviously, the thing I don't like about landscape photography is the traveling, just to getting to the location per se. Sometimes you need to drive quite a long distance just to get to the location.
Yeah. Right.
But once you do get there, it's all worth it, I
I think
guess.
it's always worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, once you get there and you experience the scenery, it's worth it. It's just like getting there, I guess. For me, it's a bit of a pain. And some of the spots, especially where I live, all the good places, are a bit of a drive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes a lot of time, and you do have to invest a lot of time in your day to get to these spots and get these photos.
Absolutely. What's the best and or worst piece of advice anyone's ever given you?
Oh, best piece of advice. The best piece of advice I'd say is they said learn on your foundations of photography. That's what my brother-in-law told me when he
Okay.
gave me that camera. He goes, try to look at some tutorials about foundations of photography.
Yeah.
It's probably the best piece of advice I got, because without that foundation, so you just won't know like what you're doing out there. Exposure, how the exposure triangle works, and little things I've learned, like having your lens stabilization. You got to turn that off while it's on a tripod. I wouldn't have learned that
No.
without going through learning, going through those tutorials. Like no one else ever told me about that. Like no one tells me now, like, oh, make sure you got your lens stabilization turned off when you're on a tripod. Yeah, so brush up on your foundations. Photography is the best. Worst piece of advice, I guess, there's no piece of advice that's bad. You could always take it for a grain of salt. You could always try to apply each advice into your photography. I mean, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work. But each advice I get from someone, I usually try to take it in and see if I can make it work for my photography. There's no really bad advice I've gotten. Most of the people I speak to, they're quite genuine photographers, and when they do give you a piece of advice, it's actually quite genuine. I haven't really received a bad piece of advice from anyone.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Who's your go-to person if you're looking for advice and sort of looking to extend yourself a bit?
Oh, go-to person. Yeah, one of my good friends, Ivan Zavaris.
Yep.
So, yeah, Ivan Zavaris? Yeah,
Yeah, I
usually,
know. Life's work. Yeah.
yeah, I usually, we shoot quite regularly together, and I usually show him my image
Hmm.
after I've edited. Oh, what do you think? Does this need a bit of improvement? Do I need to change everything? And he's quite on. If you get a second pair of eyes looking at your photo, he goes, "Oh yeah, these things you need to, brush up on this. Maybe delete this bit, distracting. Can you take this off?" And he gives you good pieces of advice, I guess. If you got a close photography friend, it's always good to show him your image and
Yeah.
see.
Makes a big difference having a second set of eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any other photographers out there that you think I should be talking to on the podcast?
Probably. Have you heard of Manesh from Blurred? He's under Blurred Clarity.
Yeah, blurred clarity. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen some of his work quite a bit actually.
yeah. I think you should speak to him, because he's got a condition where his eyes are not very good, and he's almost legally blind. And
Yeah,
even being legally blind, he still managed to take these amazing photos.
absolutely. Yeah,
One of the main senses you need for photography is your eyes, and
yeah,
his main sense is diminishing, and he still managed to take these photographs. He's recently got into astrophotography. He's taking these amazing images in astrophotography,
mm,
and he's still taking photos now, and he's getting these great images out quite regularly. And with his eyes, he can't really get to certain locations if it's quite difficult,
yeah, yeah,
and he still managed to get these great images out. So
yeah,
he'll be an interesting person to talk to.
yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, also Ivan Savaris. If you ever get a chance to talk to him, he's very passionate photographer. He's always like motivating me as well to come out and shoot. He's always got a passion to get out there and shoot. And every time I go out with him, he's always like, oh, he's really into his photography. He kind of rubs off on you his passion, and you
Yeah,
kind of get excited as well, because he's so excited to take photos. And yeah, those two are quite should be on your list to talk to.
awesome. Thank you for that. I've got only one more question for you, and it's one that I've been trying to get to the bottom of since the beginning of the podcast. Do you
Yeah,
like pineapple on pizza?
pineapple on pizza. Oh, my daughter does. So I had no choice but to eat it. My youngest daughter, every time we go to pizza place, she always orders pineapple on
Yeah,
pizza.
nice.
Always. And yeah, I got no choice but to eat it. For me personally, I don't like it, but it kind of grows on me, I guess, when you have to eat it all the time, when your little one is always ordering it. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. It's been wonderful talking
yeah,
to you. Where can people find your work?
if you want to look for me, I'm mainly on Instagram. Yeah, just search my name there, Jeff Lepera Photography. So just come and see me there. And just send me a message if you feel like going out for a shoot. So yeah, more than happy to go out, with local photographers to go out and do a sunrise shoot or whatever landscape photography they're into.
Brilliant. I'll definitely have to look you up, and we'll have to organise a trip out, mate.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, I'd love to have you on. It'd be amazing.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah,
Wonderful
appreciate
talking.
having. Thank you for being on your show. Like, Yeah, appreciate you asking me to be on this show. It's quite a good experience, actually. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Thanks, Grant.
Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Vero, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you see the podcast. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.